Imagine a man who doesn't just own a corporation, but owns your deepest desires. Every time someone, anywhere in the world, buys a bag with the Louis Vuitton monogram, pops a bottle of vintage Moët, or slides a ring onto a finger from that iconic Tiffany blue box, money flies straight into one man's pocket. Bernard Arnault. They call him the Wolf in Cashmere, the wealthiest man in Europe, and the first European in history to top the Forbes billionaire list. Arnault proved an incredible truth to the world, that human vanity and the thirst for status can build an empire more powerful, more stable, and more profitable than any oil well or tech giant. But behind the flawless glamour of the Parisian runways lies the cold, calculated grip of a predator. He didn't create these legendary brands from scratch. He came and took them, using corporate terror tactics that made all of France tremble for decades. This is the story of how icy engineering precision turned high fashion into an absolute weapon of global power. Welcome to Billionaire's Life. Bernard was born in the industrial town of Roubaix, in northern France, into the family of a successful builder. His future seemed set: blueprints, concrete, and managing the family company. He was a brilliant engineer, but his mind always sought a scale that went beyond bricks and mortar. In 1971, as a young man in New York, he got into a taxi and asked the driver a simple question: "What do you know about France?" The driver didn't recall the name of the president or a war hero. He uttered one short word: Dior. At that moment, something clicked in Arnault's mind. He realized that politicians leave and buildings crumble, but brands symbolizing a dream possess an eternal value. When the family business became too small for him, he went all in. He bought the bankrupt conglomerate Boussac, just for one jewel inside it: the house of Christian Dior. He cold-bloodedly fired 9,000 people in a single day, earning his first nickname from the press: the Terminator. From that day on, the world understood. For Arnault, business is not a matter of sentiment. It is a matter of total dominance. In the late 80s, Bernard Arnault pulled off a maneuver that is studied in every business school today as the ultimate example of elegant and brutal corporate hijacking. He spotted a crack in the foundation of two merging giants, Louis Vuitton and Moët Hennessy. The owners of these houses hated each other and were constantly warring for power. Arnault masterfully drove a wedge between them, pretending to support one side and then the other. While the founders were busy with internal disputes, Bernard secretly bought up shares. By the time the feuding parties realized what was happening, it was too late. Arnault walked into the boardroom and announced that he was now in charge. He simply kicked the old guard out onto the street, seizing full control of what would become the great monster known as LVMH. He was feared, he was cursed, and he was called a predator devouring the French cultural heritage. But Arnault didn't care about public opinion. He knew a fundamental secret: for a luxury brand to remain exclusive, it must be managed by a man with a heart of ice, who is not afraid of blood on his hands. Behind the closed doors of his Parisian mansions, Bernard Arnault is a man of almost mathematical, terrifying discipline. Every morning at exactly 6 o'clock, he sits down at the grand piano and plays Chopin. This is not a hobby. It is a way to tune his brain to precision and rhythm before the workday begins. But the main drama of his life unfolds not on the stock exchange, but at the dinner table. Arnault has 5 children, and every single one of them holds a key position in his massive empire today. It resembles the series Succession, except in reality, it is much more serious. Once a month, he gathers all his children for lunch at the LVMH headquarters. These are not family gatherings, they are rigorous exams. He asks questions, tests their intelligence, assesses their readiness to manage his legacy. Arnault has turned his family into an elite special forces unit, trained to protect the clan's wealth at all costs. A mistake here is impossible. Anyone who shows the slightest weakness is immediately pushed away from the levers of power. In Arnault's empire, blood ties mean less than efficiency. Arnault is never full. His appetite for legendary companies is limitless. The most high-profile event of recent years was the acquisition of Tiffany & Company for $16 billion. The deal began in the middle of a global pandemic, when the rest of the world stood frozen in fear. Most investors were retreating, but Arnault saw an opportunity. He launched a cold-blooded legal war to drive the price down. He sued, he accused, he pressured, and in the end, he took the iconic American brand on his own terms. He masterfully takes old fashion houses and turns them into modern money-printing machines. He hires the most daring designers and forces the entire world, from Tokyo to New York, to dream of things whose price is 10 times their production cost. His strategy is simple. Luxury is the only sector of the economy where the seller can dictate any price, even the most absurd. And as long as people all over the world want to seem better, more successful, and wealthier than they actually are, Bernard Arnault will only become more powerful. So, who is Bernard Arnault really? A collector of fine art or a ruthless corporate liquidator? His life journey teaches us one hard truth. Great success requires not only talent, but an unwavering readiness to be the bad guy when the interests of the business demand it. Arnault often says, "In business, you have to know how to wait. Patience is just as powerful a weapon as money." He built a structure that will outlive him because he invested in the eternal, in the human desire to possess the beautiful. For Bernard Arnault, there is no such thing as well-deserved retirement. For him, every new day is day one on the hunt. Thanks for watching. This was Billionaire's Life. Subscribe if you too are ready to build your empire, regardless of the obstacles or the opinions of others. See you in the next one.